A goal, Quishbilly Huddersfield Town! The most famous goal of Quishbilly's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is! Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Droopy and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed! Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Welcome to episode 77 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. The Acolytes return to you live via YouTube and not so live if you're listening after Wednesday evening. The Terriers put in a not so magnificent performance away at Brentford on Saturday, and we'll be discussing that plus more over the coming hour or so. And as always, inviting your discussion in the comments. Recently, Boris Johnson introduced the rule of 6, but being the rebellious overbookers that we are, we've put together a socially distanced, magnificent panel of 7. More Steve McLaren than Steve McQueen. I'm your host, Matt Shaw, and with me today, I've got Richard Kosmala, Neil Wayne, Dan Porritt, Brady Frost, Phil Senior, and the horse Buckles has bolted, making his podcast debut. Give a big warm welcome to Dale Marsden. How are you doing, mate? How are you doing, everybody? We all good? Fantastic. Before we get into this episode, we should say that we're sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Make sure you check out the tap rooms at both Birkby and Holmfirth because you've only got till 10 p.m. to do so now. Okay, then, guys, on to brass taxes, so to speak. Brentford. So we'll start with Brentford 3, Huddersfield Town 0, the first game at the new Community Home Stadium or whatever it's called at Brentford. Didn't go so great. Town pretty much held up the ribbon and Brentford cut it. So who wants to get us underway with discussion about the game? How about Neil? You're looking incredibly enthused over there. So
I'm just thinking.
I'll always pick on the one who always looks
please don't come to me. It was horrible, wasn't it? There's no sugarcoating it anymore. It was horrible. We just rolled over. Had his tummies tickled, and they've. To be fair, first shirt they've worn in that ground, and they won't have had to wash them for the next game, will they? They'll just gone back in, straight hung them up, ready for the next game. It was just tepid, passionless. You could just reel off a million descriptive words of what that performance was, but all in all, it were just awful, wasn't it? Again.
Anybody else want to dive in?
I mean, I didn't watch it all, but from highlights and from what I've seen, at 0-0, you know, you're thinking, well, we're doing all right. We weren't exactly going to win game, but we seem to be doing all right. And then, you know, 2 defenders go off, and obviously that makes it a lot harder. Didn't seem to be a lack of effort, just a lack of quality for me. But again, I only saw extended highlights, so you know, I'm going off that rather than a full match, but. 3-0. It's another game where we've let 3 in. Some shocking defending, certainly for the second goal. And a game where, apart from sort of a 18-yard header from Bakuna from a corner, we never looked like scoring again. So, yeah, it is what it is at the moment. I think it's going to be like that for the rest of the season, unless we bring any more, you know, players in next week or so.
Well, I think at 2, it's just like last week. 2 o'clock, you look at that team, you look who's the centre forward. You know they're a better team than us. It doesn't, you know, that doesn't need saying, really. Should have gone up last season. They did a Leeds and bottled it. I thought first half they kind of felt their way into the game. They weren't that good. But at half-time, I asked myself a question, probably everyone else did. Have they got a few gears to go up? Yes. Of Huddersfield Town? No. Their first goal was sensational. That's the football I want to see from the teams I support. That I think Stearman's still looking for the player now. Tremendous nutmeg, 1-touch finish, brilliant. The third goal was quality, yeah. You know, from a Town point of view, defending was shocking. They were brilliant, mate. And I think it said a lot for me that Oggy, who has watched us Town for a long time and not even a Town fan, really, but his commentary was kind of begging for the final whistle when we were 1 down, 2 down even. It's embarrassing that. You know, he knew we were done. He didn't want any. He didn't want any more damage, and we got the third. And it's a few people who don't have a sports fan said, well, you couldn't have expected out of that game. But this is the thing for me. We've gone from no limits like 2, 3, 4 seasons ago, whatever it was now,
to no expectations.
To no expectations, and pretty much
totally limited.
It would obviously we were going to lose that game, but their quality was so much better than ours. And I mean, we'll come on the aim a mistake again. It seems to be a weekly occurrence, but I'm glad it wasn't Ollie Watkins and it was Ivan Toney, because that should have been 1-0 there and then. And God, if they'd have got an early goal, you know, it could have been even worse. They were so much better than us, and it were embarrassing, really.
Just go back to what Pozza said. We had 56% possession that game, and we did not control it. We did not control the game.
I think the idea there, Dale, was that the one of the notes I've made is that we look to try and starve Brentford off possession of the ball. If we've got the ball, they can't hurt us. But the thing is, you can hurt yourself, can't you?
Utilise that, yeah. We've got to be able to counter it, and we just don't have anything. And it was just a typical. You could put that performance into the last 2 seasons, and you wouldn't have noticed any kind of. You wouldn't know where it came from. It was just the same performance for the last 2 years. Control the game, do nothing, offer no threat, and it was same old.
Phil, passing through the thirds is still a bit of a huge issue for us. The first goal to me showed 100% why Carlos Corberán wants to build from the back and requires a good number 6. What we've seen is Pieper makes a run forward. He doesn't receive the ball. And then Richard Stearman gets dragged out into an area where he wants nothing to do with. And he gets caught square on, which for a 33-year-old defender's a bit unusual, we'll say. And he gets nutmegged and there's no cover. You know, you've got Ramoni Critchlow on at that point. I thought it was a bright point, Ramoni Critchlow. We'll take the second goal out of it, but I thought he did well on his debut. To me, that shows that when the fullbacks bomb forward, what we require is 2 speedy centre-backs to be able to cover in those areas and those positions. I'm just wondering if you saw it from the same way.
Exactly, yeah. I'm going to pick up on it. I think if you're going to try and play the way that the manager wants you to play, I think Pippa, he set off too early because nobody else were pressing. So he's gone off on his own, pressed, and he's killed his centre-halves. He's left them totally, you know, left alone with strikers. And obviously with our 2 slow centre-halves, they're going to struggle. Stearman, again, obviously he's wanting to play out from the back. Stearman's trying to dink those crazy balls. I'm not sure why he does it. He hits a channel randomly. Hoggy was just there in the middle just to lay it into and then, you know, rotate the play out on the other side, and he didn't do it. Little things like that. If the manager's wanting us to play like that, you've got to try and stick to the game plan and play that way. And obviously they didn't and got caught out. But you know, I think there's still encouraging signs. You know, we talked last week about obviously the start and the lack of players, etc. But we've played 2 good teams here so far. We've got to try and find a positive about this. We've played 2 very good teams.
You know, sad thing for me with it though, we've played 2 good teams that were fancied. Yet we were in Premier League just over a year ago, and now we're going into games with the expectation level of getting beat by anybody in this division at the minute. And that for me, I find that hard to take. I find that upsetting. I find it soul destroying. You know, we're expecting to get beat, and you've got, you know, our front line on Saturday. If you count the attacking players on there, 30-odd million quid. 30-odd million pounds worth of footballs. I know we've been over it a million times, but you can't ever get away from that while they're still here. And, you know, we're in the games now where we're relying on these lads to come back. They got banished last season for whatever. And we're now sort of hanging us out on them. Like they're going to be, this is what's going to bring us round. This is what we've got at the moment. And at the end of the day, they're just not good enough. And when you look at 30-odd million pounds worth of footballers, to not have a good chance made from those players, it's like, I mean, those 3, it's like having 3 empty shirts on pitch, to be honest with them, and Benzema, Carby, and I know I say it every week. I know it's a broken record. I know I get stick for it, but it's a fact, innit? And until the reinforcements come, we are going to struggle.
We had a chat about this the other day, me and Neil. We were chatting in the car the other day, and I've kind of reflected on it a little bit, to be honest, thinking about the start. And if we keep looking back at this Premiership now, which is brilliant for us, I think everyone's just going to struggle and get angry and things are going to go. That's gone now. I think that now it's totally gone. And you can see in the first 2 performances we're miles off. All that noise is gone now. And what we've got to do now is we've got to try and focus on the people that we've got in this club now and try and move forward. There's still a couple of players missing who haven't been playing. But like I say, like my head's been spinning regarding the Premiership because I think the way obviously it all panned out has just been horrendous. But what can we do? We can't do anything. Think about the. You've all been there. Think about the bad days when we've been in League Two, League One. It's at least we're in the Championship. We've got.
I think that's the galling thing for me. Yeah, but that's a galling thing because we knew what we could have. We used to be called a sleeping giant. Yeah. We got to the Premier League, and we've just gone back to sleep again. We've just not built on what we could have done, and I think that is why I'm so frustrated as a fan.
Well, that's why everybody is, aren't they?
We want to be competing for the top 30, and we're not even look to be planning to do that. Yeah. It's.
I've seen a few people saying, "Oh, it's." As we've just said, you're only 2 games in. You've played Brentford, we've played Norwich. 2 fancy teams. Let's not panic. And I get that side of it. That actually, Carlos, he's been here for 3 games if you include Rochdale. But from a fan's point of view, it's not just 2 games, is it? It's what now 3.5 seasons.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
That's we've been getting almost progressively worse as that time goes on. So you can't just keep asking the fan base to reset just because we bring a new manager in. Our memories are still focused on what were happening over the last 2-3 seasons, and it's all right saying don't panic, but we've been asked not to panic and stick with it now, through since Wagner left, basically. Even then we were on decline, weren't we? And we're resetting the club, we're restarting, we've got a new manager in, and there's only so many times you can do that and say that, and if no improvement actually happens before you just think, well, I've heard all this.
I think that you're right. So. You're right, Pozza. And I think with that though, you've got when you're coming up against Chelsea, Man City, and Liverpool, and Arsenal, what have you can accept getting beat, can't you? It is what it is. Them, multi-billion-pound squads. When you're coming up against, with no disrespect, Brentford, and let's not take the Rochdale game out of the equation here. Coming up against those sides was. We've played 3 competitive games and we've not even looked like scoring. That's the worry for me.
That say about no disrespect to Brentford, and there is no disrespect, but on a footballing scale now, you've got Mark Devlin on Twitter saying that he's going down to Brentford and he's inspired by him, which is to me is absolutely insane. Why are we Huddersfield Town, a club that's been in Premier League in the last very recent future, being historically bigger, better than Brentford? Why are we now inspired by them? All right, you might have just been saying that because you used to work there and had a bit of involvement.
I think to be honest, Pozza,
as a fan's point of view, though, that just comes across as, again, small-time mentality.
I think that might have got taken out of context, to be honest, Pozza, because I think a lot of people picked up on that. Obviously, a lot of people picked up on that and had a go. And I think he issued a further reply and he said, in terms of the new facilities, he was comparing it to the old ones at Griffin Park. And Griffin Park was... Phil, I'm sure you've probably played there before, and their changing rooms at Griffin Park were an absolute shithole by all accounts. Yeah. And I think what he meant by that is the players should be more inspired by the new surroundings as opposed to the absolute ramshackle shed that they had at Griffin Park. I think that's what he meant, but I think it goes back to it'll come to communication, what will come on later, and it was probably just not worded correctly at the time. But anyway, carry on.
I think the thing is as well, lads, they are nice seats, nice colours on. But I don't know, just to kind of finish on the Brentford game for me, I think, it's just obviously new boss. Norwich and Brentford are better than us. I know we've first that, but I think for me, I wanted to see a performance, at least if we didn't win, but we've just not seen anything in the Rochdale, Brentford or Norwich game. And I think that's the issue. We don't look like creating anything. I was watching it with my mate and he turned and said to me, are you getting Sievert vibes? And now I'm not, because I think Corberán out of Sievert and the Cowleys and him has had the worst squad out of them all. And he's bringing his own players. But I think it's just, it's not just the players as well, and obviously needs time. But, I'm sure we'll come on to Schindler and Toffolo. But, Critchlow did come on and play well, but that's worrying. Like, you've got this young lad coming in, it's championship against one of the best teams, and I think that's the issue. Like we say, Corberán is a good coach by the sounds of it, but he's not a magician. This team isn't good. Like Neil said, I know we bang on about Mbenza and Diakabi, but they've been given second chances. This is their third chance, and are we really relying on them to, fire us? I mean, Matt did the stats last week, going to score something like 20 goals a season. I think we all know what the issues are, and I think it's frustrating to keep talking about it, but, it's there. We all know what the issues are. We can't score, we can't create, and you're not going to win for games.
Shall we go to YouTube and see, Neil, you're the moderator, but obviously with you being on your phone, you might not be able to dive in like you did last week. Right, okay, who wants to be moderator this week? Pete Collins is all over it. I might make him moderator. Right, okay, so Pete Collins rightly mentions, it feels like you're clutching at straws a bit, and I know why Pete's mentioned it, but there was a red card offence not given, potentially a red card offence before half-time, and losing Schindler and Toffolo's obviously thrown things out, having to bring on Jayden Brown and Critchlow, who are decent players, but again, it throws the game plan out a bit, but I don't think we'd have won anyway, so I'm not going to try and hark onto those as any sort of form of excuse. I think we were beaten fair and square on the day, but probably a red card for me. It was one of those where if it's your team, your man, and he gets a red card, you're like, a little bit harsh, but if you're there at the game and it happens to your team, you stood up on your seat, you go, you're dirty, and you're proper kicking off, aren't you? Froth
Two yellows for me. Two
yellows.
I take his point about obviously losing those two isn't great, losing two your back four before half time. But on the flip side of that just highlights to me how Wake's squad looks at the minute. It's we're threadbare, aren't we? You lose two players out, and all of a sudden you're in the shit, aren't you? Basically, and it's obviously we need this Sarr when he'll be ready. I don't know. Obviously, should be out of quarantine by now. It's just a case of getting him match fit in it. But we're desperate for him. I mean, put a different spin on it. We need, if you add in Danny Ward, Lewis O'Brien, the elephant in the room, Carlin Grant, add those in, and the side looks a lot stronger straight away. I'm not saying it's a challenging side. It's a side that makes you tread water, I think. But it's a lot stronger than what we've got now. And if you add those lads in, it does look a lot better. But at the moment, we've got what we've got, and it's not great.
No, let's finish it. Let's go through these comments. So, Dag Barnett says, sadly, we need to get real and have players who aren't good enough and don't want to be here or are mentally shot. This is something I was talking about with Stephen Chicken the other day. It feels like, with these players, a line was drawn, which players probably don't usually come back from. And we've kind of you draw the line in the sand, and we've kind of gone over with our foot and gone, just moved it away. And then we've moved the line again. And I think at some point you've got to make a decision and go, look, it's not going to happen for these guys. Whatever we do, whatever coach we bring in, David Wagner couldn't get anything out of these guys. For whatever reason, they just don't suit the football club. I'm sure they're not terrible players, but they're not showing anything at the minute. And at some point, you've just got to say, right, it's not working. Let's cut our losses and let's bring in someone else. But it's probably easier said than done, especially in this current transfer window, to move people on. And that's probably why we're stuck with them at the minute. But let's move on. So Daniel Sanderson says things like Phil lying about being at Main Road makes you think what else he's lying about. I always think that's a bit of a harsh thing to throw at Phil, to be honest. I think there's probably worse things you can level at someone than a game from 1987 or whenever it was. Phil Marston says, is it time to drop them, Neil, and bring in some of the younger lads? Or do you think because to be honest, if you bring in some of the younger lads, Phil, even anyone jumps in it can destroy their confidence as well if they're not particularly playing well. Phil, you were there when
too small, isn't it? They've got to be involved. It's just how it is. The squad is threadbare.
I'm just thinking in particular,
they've been bombed out. They've been vilified by the club and by us. And now, like you say, we've just sort of seen line in sand and gone, oh,
yeah,
well, that's over because we need them. And it's when you're relying on those players to come back in. A, they aren't good enough, and B, do they really care?
Phil, one thing I want to say, sorry.
Well, that's it. 23s have just had a decent result against quite a strong Liverpool team with Matips and Minaminos and players like that. So, for me, we bring a coach in who wants to develop players, stick them in, stick the kids in. You've said before, like we talked about Mbenza, Dikari, where's their head at? They've been tried, it's not worked. They've been bombed off. They've been slated by fans, obviously, with this Twitter where they're laughing at them at Notts Forest. Where's their head going to be at? They'll see this Twitter. So they come back to our club and they're given another chance again to play. And they're blatantly not good enough. And we've got these young kids who are doing all right. Stick them in. Stick with
I think we're
not getting
all
worse.
more likely to get behind them, aren't we? We're all more likely to get behind the younger lads coming and having a go rather than these chances.
You've got players like Hoggy, Stearman, all experienced pros who are going to help these young kids. Why not put them in now? My first season, we got relegated. I played the last 17 games of the season. We got relegated into the lowest division. I got loads out of it, absolutely loads out of it. It didn't affect my thought of how confident I would be in my performances, because the season after it's probably one of the best seasons I've had. So just get them in, stick them in.
You see older lads as well, your Oggs, your Stearmans, your Schillers, etc. They all clearly care, don't they? They play like they care. Yeah. Whether they're good enough's a different question.
Definitely.
But you know, they play like they care, and when you got those lads in amongst you, you'll know full well, Phil, from being in professional dressing rooms, that rubs off across the dressing room if you've got lads in there who you know that aren't really in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Nottingham Forest fan in the comments, probably looking for Brady to do that video finally for him, Brady. But there's he said he doesn't know whether to laugh or cry if Diakabi scores against him on Friday night. I've warned him already because these things tend to
written in the stars, isn't it?
Don't worry about that.
It's written in the stars. The greyhound chasing the goal. That one's from the
speedboat, no driver.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway,
I'll bear my house on town. I'm
gonna clip that and hold you to that.
Some breaking news on. Some breaking news on Sky says that Sky demanded, let me just have a look on this yellow ticket. Sky Sports have demanded Carlan Grant starts for Huddersfield on Friday night as they have only got one audio chant. He's electric.
He's still. Do you reckon that's in the TV contract?
Mate, on another point, it's a joke. The guy should have started the season. He should have played. I don't care. You know, you pick your best team. He's going to make us look an embarrassment now. Obviously, the fee or whatever, West Brom, they couldn't afford him and stuff.
We'll talk about Grant at the end because we've got it in the thing.
Yeah, sorry, Matt, but we've wasted 3 games there, and I'm counting the Rochdale, which people seem to be saying are pre-season friendly. Last time I looked, it would a cup game.
It was a cup game,
yeah. But go on, Matt. Sorry, mate. I don't want to.
No, it's all right. It's just it's all right, mate. I should be used to it by now. But only a few hours after the game, Town announced the signing of Carol Eiting to soften the blow of defeat, if you like. And a man quite close to us has written an article on Carol Eiting, which is now available on www.takesthatchance.com. Brady Frost, you spoke to a couple of Ajax fans, didn't you? So can you tell us what to expect from this new man? Because we've already mentioned, struggled to pass through the thirds, getting from the second to the third, the middle phase to the third is just non-existent. Is this the answer to all of our prayers?
I mean, it sounds really promising. So the guy who helped me out was called Ajax, conveniently. And fair play to him because he wrote that in his second language. It's a Dutch speaker. Main things for me, they were saying he's like the embodiment of the Ajax Academy. He's been at the club since he was, 2007. He's technically gifted, as you'd expect from Ajax, but his nickname's the Professor, and that's been his nickname from his teammates because he's intelligent with the ball and passes he makes. So I think it all sounds good. Apparently he's got a good sense of humour as well, and he's good at organising players on the pitch, which is why he's made captain. So it sounds promising. I think the issues they were saying was obviously he's had a knee injury that's kept him out for nearly two seasons now. But he was back in the squad post-lockdown, and he's not the quickest. But again, they were saying like he's a real diamond in the rough. If he can stay fit, it sounds like we've got good talent. Because before his injury, people were comparing him to Van der Beek and Frankie de Jong. I mean, I know if he had those comparisons now, he wouldn't be at Town. But it sounds like if he can stay fit, it sounds like we've got a really good player on our hands. It's just that big if. But if he's playing in that 6, which is where this guy thinks he's actually better as an 8, so he's a bit further afield. But you'd see him and Hogg kind of rotating. But sounds really good. I think the thing is as well, the club obviously knew to announce it after that disappointing defeat because I think this would be a good sign. And I think given, if things are a bit happier around the club, I think we'd all be a bit more excited. But it sounds like he's going to be good. And if he can stay fit, I hope he does well.
Phil, sorry, Pozza. I've got one question. Sorry, I'll ask to Phil, and then we'll throw it open, and you guys can. I'll bugger off, and you guys can talk about everything. in regards to when a club is down on its haunches like we were and are, if you like, how key is the transfer policy in bringing in players on a high to try and lift those in the squad? So not to criticise any player individually or any individual transfer, but it's just me sort of wondering, do you know what it's like in the dressing room? From the mental side of pro football, we've brought in Danny Ward, who was homesick, Pereira after being relegated with Hearts having a bad season, Peeper's relegated at Espanyol, Sarr was relegated at Charlton, Eiting's not played for ages. I know it does get bad. Eiting hasn't played for 2 years. Does any of that psychologically matter to the group, or is it just completely down to the individuals? Or sometimes is it better with a new start for these guys? I'm just wondering what effect it has, or if it has any at all.
I think when you bring in a bit of quality and people know of the quality, it makes a big difference. I remember when we signed Dean Gore, Steve Bruce, and we had a friendly against Leeds, and Leeds had all the top players playing, Alan Smith, Will Cox, everybody. We had Dean Gore and Kwame Adutu. I don't know if you remember him.
Is that where George Donis ripped them to shreds, and then after that it was completely?
No, there was just the young kids and right. Dean and Kwame Adutu. This was before Kwame ran over a squirrel and cried and didn't play it again.
It was so bad. It was just squirrel.
Oh, unbelievable! He ran over a squirrel going towards training. He was in tears in the changing rooms, and then he didn't play after that. But those two were great. I mean, we beat Leeds 1-0 in a friendly, and you just remember the buzz around the changing rooms about Dean Gordon, knowing what difference he would make to the team, which he did. One of my favourite players to play with at town, and it does make a difference. You know, if you're struggling, it's massive when you bring in a player of quality and that you know is going to affect the game and affect your performance as well. Just thinking back to the year we went down and we brought in someone like Sodja. That was a massive signing for us kids, knowing that Sodja would come into the club. We'd not really seen much of him, but we knew he was a good player at the time for that standard. And it made a massive difference. So I'm hoping, obviously, the youngsters will learn from this. I'm just a little bit disappointed. I just think we've got some good young players in midfield, and I just think they're crying out for a chance. Taylor, I really do think he's crying out for a chance.
Yeah, he's got a mention in the comments.
There's absolutely nothing to lose. You can't get any worse than it already is. So just go for it.
I just think we're short. I just think we're short out wide. I just think we need some players who can create out wide. I really do.
We've been short out wide for about 8 years, haven't we? Let's be fair.
Let's throw the squirrel back into the room then. Sorry, and Poz, you were gonna get fired in, weren't you?
No, I was going to just pick up on what Brady was saying about fella from Ajax, and as I was making some notes, just sort of points to try shoehorn in best I could. I was actually thinking, do you know what? It has been negative over. Well, I won't even say negative. It's just been realistic. I don't think people say, oh, it's negative, but you've got to be realistic. And I think on here we try and actually back up why we're saying what we're saying. But I thought, do you know what? Let's try to see if there's a positive that we can go for. And recruitment team, historically has taken a lot of hammer and absolutely rightly so. There's no defending that. But actually, since Carlos has come in, you've got to look at the 3 signings, and we've brought in someone from Ajax. He's not going to be, the most terrible footballer. Especially if he's been there for a while, he's going to get on ball. He's going to, he's going to be able to pass it around and stuff like that. We've brought in a Spanish under-21 right back. Again, you don't end up playing for Spain under-21s because you're rubbish. How good he is there to be judged as we see him in a town shirt. But for me, not a bad signing. And the fella from Charlton, if he's a ball playing centre half, he fits the mould. So all right, things aren't as great as what we want now. But if them 3 signings are a thing to come, and we can bring some more in, if they're going to be of that quality, then maybe things might look up. My only concern is how long they're going to take to come in, if they're going to come in. If they're going to be fit enough, with the quarantine and match fitness and all that sort of stuff. But if you're looking for positives there, for me, I don't like people just saying they're better than what we've got, because the bar is really low. You've got to look and find a signing that's better than, if you're looking to stay up, better than 5 or 6 better teams. If you're looking for mid-table, they've got to be better than what 10 teams have got. If you're looking to get promoted, they've got to be better than 20 odd player, they've got to be better players than what's in 20 other squads. So to say they're better than what we've got, yeah, there might be, we don't know, but that bar is really low. So yeah,
the danger for me is this
decent,
group of players they're used to losing. They are so used to losing. It's untrue. That is the norm for them. We need these players in now or before the season should have started.
That's why I mentioned at the start, the players we brought in are relegated players. I'm just wondering if that had any difference, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good. So I'll throw this onto you as well then, Dale. Town have been linked with a couple of players, a left back called Nesta Guinness-Walker. That seemed a little bit like agent talk. When a number of 4 or 5 clubs get mentioned in one breath, it's usually an agent trying to feed a story out to get his client to move in a lot of places. Florent Hadjianai, apparently Kasim Passer in Turkey, it's picking up a little bit of speed there, so he might be on his way.
I'm okay with that one.
Yeah, So, and one story, and it's been mentioned in the comments as well, and you guys let us know what you think. Chris Willock mentioned with a 1 million move. One thing that, the reason why I interjected, Dale, and I'll throw it straight back to you again, is because for me, one thing we've been mentioning is the new signings need to hit the ground running. We've lost 3 games. We haven't scored. The new players can't be projects, who might be good in 6 to 12 months. It's no good for us. They need to. I know it's going to be very difficult, and it's not as easy as clicking your fingers. But for me, some of these need to hit the ground running and get involved. Chris Willock, is he the type of player that you want to see, or is he kind of? Because I look at Chris Willock and think maybe we didn't see him fully fit last season. He spent a lot of time at West Brom not playing. He hasn't played. For me, he never looked 100% fit.
If you're going to get the Chris Willock from the West Brom game, fine. But he played 15 other games where he was totally honest to me. He offered nothing. And one game in 16.
Dale, what did you say to him that night, mate? That made him play like that.
It's not for public broadcast, that one. But no, I questioned their commitment that night and their what they're going to give us back, because we give them their support every single Saturday and Tuesday whenever we play. And actually, he was one of the players that night who took it on. But for me, if we've got no money, as has been suggested online, he's a lot of money for not a lot of return again, and he's just another product on his conveyor. But yeah, he is just an empty shirt. Yeah.
He's 22. He looks for me. So he played 14 games last season, 2 goals, 1 assist. For some reason, the goal against Swansea, which Mounier tapped in, never seems to get counted an assist. That's a contribution to 3 goals in 8 starts. When you kind of look at it like that, it's not too bad, especially for a player not fit. And that's 2 goals, 1 assist. That's more than the other 3 put together who get a lot of stick. Pritchard, 1 assist in 9
I can't argue with that one.
Yeah, but like I say, it's whether he's going to hit the ground running, isn't it? So that's why it's kind of like I'm umming and ahhing going, is he going to hit the ground running? If he's 100% fit, I think he's going to be an interesting player, but it's whether you guys think he's worth the risk or not.
I think sometimes we've talked about it before, and one of the things, I know we're going to come on to communication, so I won't go too much into depth, but I think what Towns can sometimes be criticised for is not, as we've said before, reading the room, so to speak. So yeah, as you've just said, Chris Willock, not the stats that you've just read out, if you've never seen him play or heard about, you'd probably say, hey, it's not that bad, but because he played in that team that was so bad towards back end of last season, you automatically just think Chris Willock, rubbish, because he played in that awful sort of season that we had. So sometimes, as they probably don't go into stuff like this, but actually, do you just put him aside and move on and find someone else simply to get rid of that pre-judgment from fans? That can play a big thing, because if he comes in and doesn't hit the ground running, as Dale's just said, £1 million, a lot of money for someone who we've already seen didn't really do that much that excited everybody. Would we be better going and spending £1 million on a different player, coming in fresh, coming in without pre-judgment and all that sort of stuff? So sometimes you've got to look at it from that point of view as well as just how good is he at football.
I know we're going to play a certain way under Corbyn, but don't you think that we need to do bits and bats? I mean, I got a bit sad. I had Stoke games on my telly in the background. Stephen Fletcher, I mean, obviously passed it, what have you, but every time a ball goes in the boxes, there's 2 people, the defenders, we've got no one like that. And I get we're trying to play on the floor, but I just think we need to do something a little bit different, and we'll probably come on to Grant in a sec, but I suppose he's got his own way of play. There's just that threat, like when you look at our team and you're in the opposition dressing room, Thomas Frank could have looked at that thing. he's a confident guy. Anyway, I don't think he'll be arrogant enough to say, but it's like I don't see any threat from them. I feel 100% confident we're going to get the job done today, and that's just it.
Last week there were Twitter talk about Charlie Austin, and the amount of town fans were saying we're not having Charlie Austin. I wouldn't welcome him at our club.
It's because he's a bell end, but you need a bell end.
I'd take him all day, mate.
We've not had a bastard for a long time.
Give me half a dozen bastards any day.
And for me, that is a number one kind of signing. And we're not going to get him. But for me, those are the kind of players I want to see. I want to see them fighting for us and making a nuisance. And yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the fans don't. They like being the nice, pretty club, and this, we're a community club. It's about time we started being a winning football club.
Warnock style again.
Yeah. I'd take the poor football for...
Even Jacko had a couple of shit houses in there, didn't he, Phil, with Soji and...
Soji was horrendous.
Yeah. It was hilarious, to be honest.
It was embarrassing at times.
He's,
you need it. You need that little bit of an edge. Worthy you just go flying into anybody. Worthy were nasty on pitch. But then saying that, we had Andy Holdsworth.
Yeah,
he was scared of his own shadow.
Worthy trains my 5-year-old, and sometimes I think he's going to go through him in match.
You just want to look at our team sheet when it's out on a Saturday or Tuesday, whenever we're playing, just think, as a fan, you want to think we've got some threat. As an opposition, you think, oh, God, I'm not really looking forward to marking these guys. But at the moment, you're just thinking, no problem.
Yeah. Although we used to on a Friday, we used to get obviously a list of players, and you'd look and I would focus on goal scoring midfielders, wide players, and I just remember you'd have certain players in teams that you think, oh God, yeah, they've got a little bit, Doncaster's when we played, and Mackindo and things like that. They were dangerous players. I totally agree with you. I'd look at the team sheet against us at the moment, and I'd think, where's the danger coming from?
But Phil, it's really weird because if you scribble the names out of our team sheet and you looked at the fees, you'd be like, wow, as if you just kind of landed off the moon and be like, bloody hell, 40 minutes, 10 million, 9 million. Yeah. I know we haven't done Pritchard yet, which must be a world first, 30 minutes in a pod or whatever, but it's like...
That enough battle.
But you know what, though, man?
I've not what else to say about him.
I honestly think it's like, well, they've spent a lot of money on good wages, get them in. I'm with you, Phil, now. It's almost like, forget the names, forget what we're paying for them, forget the fee. Get them out and get your Matty Daly's and get other guys in who give a shit about Huddersfield Town.
Hungry players who are hungry to do well. That's honestly, playing devil's advocate. How would it work if we'd have put us under 23s in instead and just played them?
We couldn't be any worse off, could we?
Well, this is it. So you just don't know, do you? And I just think, this was the perfect time now to just get them in.
To be fair, it's Juninho Bacuna who's getting hammered in the comments.
Worthy's there, Danny Schofield's there, like two lads who've actually been there and done it, so they can talk them through it. Worthy were captain virtually straight away.
What do you do with Bacuna? We had a little bit of a group kind of chat. We have some late night group chats. Lee said about that better, but Bacuna was on our list the other night, and it's so difficult because it's like he won us 5-6 games last season and probably, I think, kept us up with a lot what he did. But he's just anonymous in so many of them and that as well. I mean, I talked about maybe putting him in that 10 role for Pritchard, but then Matt rightly pointed out that Cowley played him there and he didn't do nothing. I don't know where we... Yeah,
get him back on bench. Every performance last season where he's shone, were coming off at bench. He had that spell when he came off at bench and scored every week. Do it again. Shock him into it.
I said in the comments last week, he made an impact. I'm saying he's an actual impact player, and I wouldn't trust him to start with any game.
Oh, definitely. Who would you rather have, Kosi? Would you rather have Bacuna or Peter Beardsley?
Oh, mate, mate. Both guys will come win a game, Phil, as you know. But you know what, though? I don't think Bacuna, I think he'd really spit the dummy out if he got dropped in this. I think he'd just think, well, hang on a minute. We're a third bottom or fourth bottom. I'm on the bench. But maybe it needs that, though. And
he's one of the reasons why. It's that simple. All these players are a reason why we're third bottom, fourth bottom, whatever we are, ever looked. Let's be fair, we're lucky not to be bottom, aren't we? So all these players at some point have got to take responsibility. They've got to look in the mirror and think, we aren't good enough. There's only them can sort it out. Corberan can be the best he can possibly be all week. But as soon as it turns up on a Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, it's over to them. And too many of them that are still here have shown week in, week out that they haven't got the balls for it. And we need some, like Phil says, get the under-23s in. Matty Daly should be starting games. Edmonds Green, let's have him in and all. Osterfield would arguably one of picks of pre-season. We haven't seen him since.
Neil, there was a big article in the Football League paper, which obviously is out of Sunday, Matt, price £1.50. It's good read. But Chris Dunlavy, the editor, he wrote a big article on Alex Pritchard. It was quite a funny one. I don't know if anyone saw it, but it's like a caricature of him and that as well. It showed like terriers and stuff. But his point was that he wonders whether Corberan could do the same with him. I think you mentioned it before. It wasn't Klitsch. What was the other league player?
Click, yeah. It was
Click, yeah. It basically said Pritchard's as hated at Huddersfield as much as Klitsch were at Leeds, and now it's obviously kind of a bit of a cult hero. And he just wonders, again, it's similar things we've said towards Huddersfield fans don't like Pritchard, and can he come good? And he were almost like, don't give up on him. But I know we've been here.
Chances for me,
It reminds me a lot of Hernandez, that kind of player. But
that's the issue with someone like Pritchard. That's the kind of player he is. So if it doesn't come off, it don't look great.
He needs runners.
That shot he had at weekend nearly out of ground.
It hadn't landed in Griffin Park, did that one, didn't it? But
they've done him to death. Yeah, we're better.
Yeah, let's not give him any more hammer. But some of
him this week did Pritchard when they were playing.
Pritchard's here. He's here. Empty shirt.
He brought the ball down and he touched it and he smashed it into the net. In real games, he's turned up one of them ones that just falls to bits. There's no murder ball about that, and I don't know if he just falls to bits.
It's been murder ball for nearly 3 years, hasn't it? Let's be fair.
Yeah.
Shall we have a look at YouTube? So going back to the Willock stuff. So Leo says we need strikers. Campbell's rumoured to be in touch with Chef Wednesday, which would be interesting. Pete Collins says we could do with Willock. Phil Marston says Willock massively overrated, could do better. HTFC Stato, my researcher from last week, says Pereira, Eiting, Sarr, Pieper have all played Europa League or Champions League football. Danny Ward is the only signing that hasn't. I thought that was quite interesting. Josh Phillips, who's done an article for us on the website this week, says surely one or both of Pritchard and Bakuna has to be dropped for the Forest game. It's not really working with those two as creative enforcers. I think as soon as Lewis O'Brien's fit, I'm sure one of those two.
Oh, we need him fit so much, don't we? Come on, Lewis. Come on, physio. Get your job done.
Know what's actually wrong with him? Is it his thumb?
Quad.
Playing too much Call of Duty or what?
He's streaming, isn't he? He's injured his thumb. No, it's his quad, I think. He injured his quad early on, yeah. But this is what we're saying though. The last few weeks with regards to the squad, the transformation from Danny Cowley's one training session every 2 or whatever it was every 2 days. It wasn't that. It wasn't as heavy as what Corberan does. That sort of transition from a more Chris Powell style training regime, shall we say, to Corberan's murder ball 2 or 3 training sessions a day is going to cause these soft tissue injuries, and the club just needs to be aware of that in terms of the squad. And like Phil says, I think it's worth throwing some of these kids in because they're going to be needed later on in the season because their injuries will happen, while people while players are moving. But speaking of moving, let's go to Mr. Frost, because you have a couple of Twitter questions, don't you, that you're going to fire out. So I'll let you crack on.
That Guinness Walker lad, Matt, I don't know if this is true, just before I go on. Apparently, great grandson of Sir Alec Guinness.
I thought you were going to say Roy Walker. I'm disappointed.
No. So there you go. So
I'm more like a solicitor's firm than a footballer, to be fair. But,
yeah. So I've got quite a few questions on Twitter. We've got a lot on finances, and to be honest, I think if you listen to the Stephen Chicken and Utabia with David Hartrick, they did a really good
trick and chick
on finances. So I don't think we should answer that.
Yeah. Can't match them.
Can't match them. So the first one I've got is again touching on Mark Devlin. Still got no shirt sponsor. I wanted to get your thoughts on that because obviously the quote from Mark Devlin was, "It's been silent, but there's nothing to report. We've had opportunities to do cut price deals, but we're not going to undersell ourselves. Rather take the time and get the right deal with the right partner." The question I got about this is, we've still got no shirt sponsor, yet the club's had to make furloughed staff and made redundancies. Like, what do we think? Do we think it's just take the deal? So to the panel.
I think I've said it before. And I've put it on Twitter. Sorry to dive in as quick as I could there, but each one of them for me that if you've not got a sponsor and a couple of people come to you and you go, no, thanks for your interest, but we think you're better than you. But then you perform and the club operates in a way that it is at the moment. How on earth, as a potential sponsor, just search the HTAFC hashtag on Twitter, and there's not a chance you put in, big, decent companies coming towards us and saying, here's loads of money to put you on a shirt. So we're already 3 games in. They've missed the big reveal, so all the publicity from that. This was a perfect opportunity to do something a little bit different. Do you go down the charity route? I suggested, just as you do in Sunday League, you raffle off tickets and local businesses buy them for, £1,000, 500 quid. They all go into an hat and Big Bob's Butchers gets pulled out and, he's on front of the shirt. It's a decent, PR event for the club. That'd get picked up on media and it puts the club
sell off those shirts for charity. Yeah.
To have no sponsor is, pretty disgusting, really, for a Championship club, in my opinion, anyway.
It's a tough one, though.
I look at it in a different way. And for me, the thing that I don't like is, we haven't got one. Everything that you've said there, Pozza's bang on. They've missed the reveal now. Each week that goes by, the chance of selling it, the value of it is shrinking anyway. Can they devalue it by getting X company onto it? We haven't got one at the minute. So if somebody's offering us X amount of thousands of pounds and we are saying, because of COVID, etc., let's give them that one. COVID's affected them with a lot of money. There's somebody here coming in and saying, we're going to give you X amount of £1,000 to go on shirt. If we're making staff redundant from that football club, our football club is making people redundant out of the job. We're paying, let's reference them 3 again, we're paying the empty shirts, God knows how many thousands of pounds a week. And there's people who've been working in that club since God were a lad who are losing their jobs, put their heart and soul in. The fans at heart, they're losing their jobs on probably a year what some of these clowns are getting a week.
Half a week.
And we're turning down a sponsorship deal that could potentially pay 2 or 3 of their wages. That's how I look at it. So if you've got a company coming in who they might be deemed to be not blue chip enough, for us, they might not be deemed to be, but people are out of work. People have lost their jobs in the worst possible climate. They're still getting paid their tens of thousands of pounds a week. That money, for me, you could sell it like that. We've taken this on, which means we can avoid making people within the club redundant. This is why we've gone this route. This sponsor's really been brilliant for us by coming forward with this amount of money.
It's hard though, Neil, to play devil's advocate. You might have got a laughable bid in, and then you're thinking, nah, and then you're going to hold out for a little bit.
Depends what it is. Nobody's going to come in with, it's going to be, people know what these things are worth. But every week it goes on, they're worth less, aren't they?
But you don't know what they've offered, though, mate. That's what I would kind of say to stick up for the club. You don't know.
Shirt sponsorship in that, and at the end of the day, if it has been laughable bids, don't say we've turned 2 down because they weren't quite right for us.
No, that shouldn't have been. That should have been not said. Shot themselves in the foot there.
Say it's because the value of it were nowhere near what it's worth to us and to them. So you can't say about it.
That's the issue for me.
I think it was the wording of the.
Said it.
It sounded to me that whoever's come forward, we didn't want on our shirts, rather than. Remember when Chef Wednesday was sponsored by Chupa Chups? That was ridiculous, wasn't it?
Classic.
That put the club and it made him look stupid. To me, this is that sort of thing that's happened, not they've come and not offered us enough money.
Yeah, you don't say that, though. They were embarrassing, I thought, from the club. You shouldn't say that. You should do your business in. I don't know if it was a come and get me players, they're saying the tabloids to other companies, but if it was, it's backfired. And if we don't get one, like you said, Neil, it's going to look stupid now.
I tell you what, if it had been my company that approached them and then I saw that, I'd be going public saying it were me that went to sponsor them. This is what they don't think I'm good enough, kind of thing. And I'd be out in club on that, because the way that it were worded were almost like X companies approached us, but we're not having them because we don't want them on our shirt. We want someone better. And really, you don't know what they've offered money wise, and you're not going to just take 50 quid or whatever, because you can't. but word it better. And again, it goes back to communication coming out of the club at the moment. It's absolutely horrendous. They cannot put anything out that makes a fan go, oh, yeah, I tell you what, I understand that, because it's just worded so bad. I mean, I don't know if we have a PR guy there. Do we have a PR guy? You know, because we need one, because at the moment, everything that comes out is just amateur. And fans pick up on it. There's everything to moan about. Let's moan about that as well. And, you know, if we can get that sorted, then, you know, all of a sudden things might be a little bit better. Sorry, Brady, I've gone off well off.
No. I think it's
yeah, Brady. What we question again?
Next question.
Well, yeah, no, just to say as well, like to give the other side. I think as well, like we don't really care about shirt sponsors if we're winning 3 games, do we?
Exactly, mate.
Exactly.
So hopefully this will be a bit more of a lighter question. This is from James Bentley on Twitter. Would you have watched an all or nothing style documentary about the last 5 years of Huddersfield Town? I would go yes, because I think it'd be interesting to see what it is really like behind the scenes compared to what we see. But yeah, anyway, what do you think?
We used to have one, Brady. I mean, you might not, you're a young guy, but I remember, Phil, you probably weren't born, and Neil, we once had one, mate, back in the day on Betamax. I remember putting it in, Simon Trevitt, Owen Hand era, Ian Banks, and it was quite interesting. Ray Chappell doing the ground.
That Reece Dinsdale one?
Ryan and Jean.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah.
He presenting it, a young Reece Dinsdale presenting it. Is that that one?
I think it was, yeah. And it was weird.
I would absolutely hate us to do anything that Amazon style, because as it stands at the minute, it'd just be a complete car crash, wouldn't it?
The Wagner years would have been good, though.
Yeah. I think it's good if you can script it.
Then we could have just stopped it there. That'd have been perfect.
If you can script it, brilliant. But
I think I'd watch it if only Town fans could watch it, but I'm sick of being the laughing stock.
Yeah.
Well, I watching that Sunderland one. That were bad enough. Bloody hell.
I quite like that, to be fair.
Well, I like it because I'm interested in stuff like that. I just finished watching the Spurs one just on that, and that's really good because that's more on the football side rather than the running up to club.
Have you seen the Leeds one yet?
Not watching.
I watched the first one, but I'm not watching the second one.
Exactly.
I watched the second one.
What happens then, Phil?
Unfortunately, they got promoted.
Don't need to watch it.
Waiting. I like them. I think they're good. I think they give a nice insight into. I thought the Sunderland one were brilliant. They were really good. It brought.
The Sunderland one were a great watch as a new.
So many questions for fans. I mean, Rodwell. People's thoughts on what he should have done, and I think it's brilliant. It gives fans a real good insight into not only what the players go through as well. You forget what the players are going through day in, day out. You know, I'm lucky enough to do both, and the stresses are so different. Like you say, going back to players and not caring about clubs. Some do, some don't. That is just, some care about work wherever they're working, some don't. It's just through life, innit? But the difference is for us, like we're supporters, we care more, and you want them to care just as much as you. But in reality, they just don't. Some of them don't.
No.
I think those documentaries are brilliant. I really do. I think
I like them.
They're amazing.
Well, yeah, no. Cheers, lads. Thanks for asking the questions. Back to you, Mr. Matt Shaw, host.
All right, let's go into communication then. So there was an interesting conversation developing on after Kosi, you posted a live, just an innocuous live tweet, if you like, and conversation started to flow. So a good question, I think, and way to take this. And I think I'm going to go initially to Dale and Kosi on this one, so you guys can prepare for this. And Poz will, all of you can get anyway. I'll bring you all in. But how do the club keep a connection with the fans if no one's in until March? So how do the club keep the fans happy on side, especially with the way things are? How do people want the club to communicate? Because potentially we've been spoilt a bit by Dean in how he's dealt with people before in a business or in a football club. Usually the man at the top doesn't always give you the answers. It's usually one of the management, like Lee Bromby's manager of head of operations, Mark Devlin's your MD. Usually they give you their individual answers. And it was a conversation between John Axelsson, a Swedish Terrier, Bernard Liszewski at B Reflex, and Ben Denby. And I found it quite interesting. And there was one thing John Axelsson started, said he wants communication to be a bit more open. He thinks there would be much more understanding why things are the way they are at the minute. So start with, the first change he would make would be to be more open with the fans. And Bernard Liszewski's come back and said it's a well-expressed sentiment, but what exactly do you want the club to be more open about? It's a competitive sport, so presumably any club won't want, for example, to state an open transfer budget, which I don't think people want. And Ben Denby as well says he doesn't think, he sort of says the neediness for people to know the ins and outs of the football club isn't sustainable, really. And for example, bet people never ask their own boss for a balance sheet, which is probably a good point. So John came back then and said, he mentions the Hoyle Q&As, it's very quiet at the minute. How do you guys, so Dale, I'll come to you first, but how do you think the club should be communicating at the minute? The club are obviously struggling. There's a certain section of fans, if you like, I'm not saying this is good, bad, or whatever, but if the club put anything out, they get jumped on straight away and things are construed in negatively, or, you could just get signed an effing striker, etc. So the club are obviously struggling to deal with that itself. As a fan who goes on social media quite a lot, how do you want the club to communicate with you, with your target audience, as you as a target audience?
Me personally, I don't want to see what the players are eating. I don't want to see what the skills they can do, this, that, that. I don't follow the town socials anymore. I had enough of listening to the garbage that they're trying to. I don't know who they're trying to address their target audience. Is it the kids? Is it the folk who are paying week in, week out? Or I don't think there's any kind of strategy for their media presence. Phil said he was the custodian of the club, as advised by Dean. He wasn't the owner of the club. As a custodian of the club, he's part of us. And I don't feel like the club are open. I don't want to know the ins and outs and how much we're signing players for and what balance there is, like you just said. But at least give us an idea of a plan or some kind of programme that we're kind of trying to follow. And I don't think we've had that since Wagner and Webber. And I think that's so frustrating because we don't know where we're at. We don't know what to look forward to. And we're just surviving. We're just literally doggy paddling. That's all it is for me.
Cos?
Echo so much what Dale said. I've kind of had a few outbursts on social media. I've unfollowed them, Matt, and I've unfollowed the club I love. It makes me sad. Very, very sad. But I don't get it. You know what? If we win on Friday, 3-0, we're just going to have videos of someone doing a 360 turn. Look at this, look at that. I mean, we're hyping players up. It so frustrates me he does that. We don't see it being level-headed. We need this to be up there if we win, or, if we lose, we just kind of go one way. I just think in these unprecedented times where, let's be honest, we'll talk about it later, but getting in the stadium looks a pipe dream at the moment. You've got to do something different. We're on here, we're doing something different on a Zoom. Why aren't the club doing something like that? Why are they not like having a select 80 to 100, kind of people and have a Q&A and then maybe get it out, to the masses and that as well? I'm probably going to get loads of abuse here, but I support Leeds Rhinos rugby, but they've really looked after us, mate. The communications I've got like half of I've got souvenir shop discount. I've got the playing tomorrow on an app and stuff. That's just part of it. I saw a tweet the other day where someone said, well, all we've got at the moment is just we've paid 250 quid for an iFollow, voucher, which is what it is at the moment. Why not give us a free shirt or something like that as well? Just make us feel proud. Can you imagine that on your phone tomorrow? I know it's only a little thing, but just Richard, your season card holder, thanks so much for your loyal support in these unprecedented times. Go to the club shop, put this code in, you get a free shirt or get a discounted shirt. Just give us something back because we're getting nothing. And while I think, maybe we would get, if we were going down to the stadium, we could have vent a spleen and we could, we feel part of it. We don't feel part of it anymore. I honestly think that even if we were kind of doing a bit better, I don't think I feel so much detached. We've been spoiled. We've had Dean, we've had Sean, who fronted up, God, the abuse Sean got, but he always put his head above the parapet. At the moment, the club just seems to have, they're getting abuse and stuff, but unfortunately, this is the unfortunate real life in social media, but they're taking a view at the moment, right, we're being spoken to like, but you've got to remember, this is just it's kind of a growing minority, but they're getting abused, but not everyone is. So there's loyal fans out there, like, thinking, what is kind of going on? So I suppose in a roundabout way, they seem to have done nothing. I mean, Devlin's, I don't even follow him on Twitter, but what has he done, the guy? Nothing. Commercial guy, we don't see him. We've had it good before, but it's just so frustrating. Sorry, Pod.
No, I think on. Oh, go on, Neil.
No, go on.
I was going to say, for me, you were just coming in because both Dale and Kosi have mentioned sort of the target audience of a football club. And football clubs, we've got to realise they've got fans, obviously 14, 15 who have social media right all the way up to, 80 plus, and some of them will be on social media as well. So I think what they put out actually on their Instagram and on the Twitter and stuff like that, I've sort of come to accept me that's not me anymore. I'm too old. I'm 35. A lot of the little snippets, and like Dale says, and Kosi, the 360 spinning videos with the flashing lights and all that, that ain't for me anymore. I'm not interested in that. I can accept that. I still follow a club because they put information out, so that's information that I need. So I kind of gloss over the snippets and all that sort of stuff. I kind of get that it's not for me. For me, communication though, wherever there's questions being asked by fans and no answers forthcoming, that's when fans start to fill in the gaps for the club. And that's where things can get really quickly out of hand, because you get one question and someone replies to it and it's absolutely, totally the opposite. Yet 10, 15 people see it, then they all jump on it, and all of a sudden it's gospel and it's right. So for me, if I were the club, what I would do is I'd be, as well, don't you? Well, yeah, I'd be monitoring the social media of the, I know it's a bit stalkerish, but of the fans. What are fans discussing on Twitter and forums like Down at the Mac and stuff like that, and what are people wanting to know? And then I'd be coming out and trying to address that. I'd be saying, look, we've seen X, Y, and Z being asked. This is what's going on. Obviously, we can't go into massive pounds, shilling, pence about what's going on, but yeah, we have been affected by COVID. Stephen Chickens on the podcast that you've already mentioned went through it, and why doesn't someone from the club come out and just give facts and figures? We used to get X in, but because of this now we're getting Y, and all of a sudden there you suddenly understand. I listened to that little bit of 10 minutes from Stephen Chicken and actually took a step back and said, look, yeah, I've been screaming out for transfers, but actually I can really see now why we may be not going out and spending all this money. And it was 10 minutes worth of decent journalism. Why can't someone at the club do that? You've got all these people right at the start when Carlos came in. It were overwhelming how much stuff they were putting out about everybody being on the same page. And now, there's actually nothing. And like I say, wherever there's gaps, people started asking questions about Canal Side. What's happened to the money? Is that why we aren't buying players who we can't afford to, we've put a porter cabin up rather than redoing it? And as soon as stuff like that gathers momentum, the rumour mill churns out some ridiculous things. And all it takes is once, every now and again, a statement, a video from, Phil, Mark, whoever's at the club, just address some of these concerns that fans are having. And all of a sudden, you lose a lot of people questioning you because they know they don't need to make it up because they've been told. Might not like what they're told, but if they're told something, it's better than being told no for me.
Pozza, you've got to do something different though, mate. And I mean, Reynolds and like Yorkshire Cricket, they rang all the elderly people in COVID. How are you doing? Are you all right? You've been a good member. Sorry, can't come on the games. How are you doing? Little things like that.
Town did that though, didn't they? When Fraser Campbell was doing bits of that.
Well, Matt, like you've got...
Not to that level, but yeah.
I know a lot of people who were lost a little bit of local cricket because they went to play golf. And obviously with the COVID, the cricket wasn't started and stuff. A lot of people are going to lost Huddersfield Town unless they start doing something different. There's such a standoff. Do they just think a few kind of weeks, a few wins will change everything? I'm not going to name names, but I know someone who kind of works in the media, and they've said to me they feel the club don't feel there's a problem. Well, I tell you what, there is a problem, and I think it'll. And even a few wins won't change that.
I think if you look across social media, Twitter, etc., in particular, because that's where most of us are on. That's where you see most of the chat sort of to-ing and throwing. And you're getting people, myself included in this, you're getting people going from being at a level where they defend the club and try and back the club with whatever and appreciate what they try to do. And as soon as you see those fans, I mean, I've done nothing but whinge on here for the last couple of months.
Uninvested.
And I don't like it. I don't enjoy doing it, but you've got to be honest about it. And there are thoughts. And when you see people, I consider myself to be an average fan, like everybody else is an average fan. We go at games, we have an opinion, we get excited when we win a game. We're going to be champions and 1-2 on shot. Whatever. We've all been there, haven't we? We've got carried away with stuff. but at the minute, there's nothing from the club to give us something to get hold of. And when you lose, and when you look across social media, when you're losing people like me, who I'm at the stage where I'm not that bothered if ground opens up this season. I'm already there, and that was my. You call it a religion. It is to an extent, isn't it? You know, I go there with my dad. I've sat and I've thought to myself. I said to Mrs. the other week. I said, I might have genuinely seen my last game in a ground with my dad. That could have happened, and that hurts. That really hurts, you know, because my dad's already said he won't go back until it's safe to do so, because he's, you know, well into his 70s and what have you. So I might have seen my last game in a ground with my dad. So on that, I don't know what they can do, but with things like that in mind, the club need to start. I mean, to be fair to him, and I'll mention it, I won't go into too much detail because it won't be fair, but a couple of weeks ago here, I had a right go about the communication and the fact that this new guy who'd taken over from Sean, I didn't even, you know, and I said I didn't even know if he was still there. Didn't even, you know, are you there? And I genuinely said that. I wasn't taking the piss. I didn't know if he were there or not. And fair play to him, a couple of days after he rang me for a chat and fronted up, which I thought, fair play to you, because, you know, well, I probably on the phone with him nearly an hour, and that one particularly pleasant for him hearing everything that I'd said. It's stuff that we've all said on here. You know, engage with us. The kits are, what are they, 50 quid for a shirt that's worth, you know, probably a tenner. Give us, people who've bought season tickets for this season, throw money at a product that they're not going to get out back from. Put an offer on, like you said, Kosi, put an offer on where you buy one, you get second one half price, or because you bought a season ticket, you get 25% off it, whatever, if you get a name put on back, all that. Give us something, because a lot of people won't buy a shirt because they're not being able to go to a game. We know that's a fact because people have told us. So with stuff like that, you know, do not necessarily an interview with the club, because that can be very much led by them and what they want to tell us. But come on and do a Zoom chat. You can invite 40 fans onto something like this and do a Zoom chat.
I'll tell you what, Neil. While we're doing that, I will offer, if Mark Devlin, Andy Ward, any of those guys want to do it, I will organise it. Yeah? What would be a good idea is if we get not just a merry group of fans, not us, you know, not necessarily us, specific fans who can deliver an opinion without being abusive, and I will happily chair or organise Mark Devlin, Andy Ward, any of those guys to come not onto an episode of our podcast. It's not going to be our podcast, but a meeting which can then be put out and fans can ask questions, because at the minute it feels like there's a missing link somewhere, and I'll happily do that. So I know people at the club listen to all three podcasts. They might not listen to us anymore after the last few weeks. But if you guys are listening, I'm happy to organise that. I'm happy to do that. I think it'd be a good idea not only to get podcasters on there, but also the likes of Stephen Chicken from the media, etc., and let people ask questions in a format which is not going to be destructive, but in a format which is going to be beneficial to everybody. And I'm happy to organise that if anybody at the club wants to come on. And
you could even do it so the questions are given beforehand, so they know what questions are coming.
Yeah, I don't mind. You know, as long as people get the info, you know, that they're looking for.
Yeah, as long as they get the info that they want.
So look in the news this week, Matt, we're going to talk about in a sec probably about the potential demise of the EFL clubs. The club's got to think outside the box. It's got to do things different. It's got to, you know, do everything it can to get, you know, any money, any income, all the support it can get. At the moment, it just feels like we're shooting ourselves in the foot, man.
Yeah, it's like we've had some criticism before about some of the interviews we've done. You know, we're not Jeremy Paxman, so we'll make sure we can get, you know, anybody on who can ask, you know, a question. Like I say, I'm happy to do that. That's the thing, Poz. Any more points on Brady? Do you want to come in on points on communication?
Yeah, just a quick one, because I work in social. I think the thing is, like, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I think there has actually, in fairness to the club, I think there's been some stuff that's gone out that's all right. So you've got the expert view. So you've got Chicken on there. I saw they had Natalie Sawyer, who works for Talk Sport. She's a Brentford fan, previewing the game. I think stuff like that. Although I'm not the fan of the graphics personally, I think the behind the line stuff's quite interesting. That's the kind of stuff you more want to hear about. But I think the thing is, not to bore because who really cares about social, but there's different audiences with different channels. Like there's Facebook tends to be for the older generation. Typically, Twitter's more for your football fans. And Instagram's for the young audience. And I think there is stuff that they have done that's all right. There's stuff they could do. I agree with you, Matt. Like having some kind of more open communication. I think this is more not just a social thing. I think, like you say, it's more a PR thing, and it's looking good in the press. And doing those good, like feel good things, like giving you a discount, or they did do Zoom calls to fans. I mean, I think they could do more of that, and that'd be better. I think it's just it's being open and honest. I think what you've got to caveat with that as well is, again, if we're winning, I don't think this thing's such an issue. But, the matter of the fact is, none of us, well, all 7 of us sat here, don't feel great about the club that we love, the club that we used to go watch every week, home and away. And I think that is, if that is the case, if it's led to believe that they are thinking, it's not an issue, I think that is worrying. Because, you will see the comments. I mean, I don't work for the social team, but you see the comments on everything. Everyone jumps on that. And, there is stuff you can do. I think it's more like we kind of touched on, it's more a PR thing and like the goodwill stuff. And like you say, people have said we're in the club's pockets or whatever, but, we want stuff to be good. We would help out. I'm sure the other stuff would help out. And I don't know, They do some good stuff, but again, I do think if we're winning, we don't really care about this as much, being completely honest.
Maybe. The thing is, though, there's reasons why we aren't winning, isn't there? And that's why the questions are coming up.
Absolutely.
So if we were winning, we won't be complaining because the things that need doing now would have been done.
No, but if two people on here who follow a club for like combined 40, 50 years are unfollowing the club's Twitter account, that's bad. That's bad. That is bad.
Yeah. Well, we've Matt's had his call out, so
Yeah, I'm happy. Matt at takesthatchance.com. You got my email address, Twitter at TTC Matt. Just find me a message if you want me to do it, or
give us a bell,
or do it yourselves. No worries. Right, do you want to move on from comms, or is anybody out there?
On that note, Matt, doing it themselves don't work. Doing it themselves don't work because that's very much they're just telling us what they want to tell us. No offense to the guys in there, but they do the thing that's the post-match now, where they talk to whoever, and one of the players, say Tommy Elphick, for instance. And I appreciate they've got to put some stuff out because there's not going out. And, the guys who are doing it are great people. But are you going to get a true reflection of the right opinions when it's one of the players? He can't talk about it. He can't go in there. And not that I'm not recommending that people call them three empty shirts, but is he going to go on there and give a fully balanced, honest view on that performance or the previous 2 performances about those players? No.
He's good, isn't he? But he's compromised.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the thing is as well, and I'm sure we all know this, but at the end of the day, the club, there is a part of it where, most businesses will admit their faults. So there can't be, even in, if there is stuff going on behind the scenes, it's not like they're going to be honest.
Let's get this right. Let's get this right. We would love it. Everybody on here, everybody on Twitter, everybody on whatever else channel would absolutely love it if we got naff all to complain about and we're buzzing and beating everybody 3-0 every week. That's what we want. As a football fan, we only want, and I'd say one thing, 2 things. Yeah, we love to see a team win. But if we can rock up, or even current climate, just watch an iFollow stream or whatever, and see a team out there having a real go, and a team where you can put your shirt on happy, it's all about they're playing for you. You can tell they go out there, they give a shit, they're playing for you. That's all we want. It's that easy for me.
Shall we move
Whatever
on?
Division. Yeah.
Shall we move on? Let Neil bookend that with that. So a couple of points left, really. I know we've been on for an hour and 10 minutes and people are probably getting bored, although we're still 89 people watching, which is decent. So thank you for that.
So Fleetwood are on telly, mate.
Yeah. So some of the people, let's have a look at this. Phil Marston saying, hate the Premier League experience. Sorry, Matt, I think I need a stronger pair of glasses because this is starting to look really small to me as I'm getting older. John Smith says the club have messed communications up by saying or making statements and then not following up with action. The videos of canal side development is a prime example. I think that was promised a couple of months ago, a canal side update, and it never came. But Mark Devlin did say on Twitter there should be something shortly on that one. Not being able to go to any games is actually a blessing. Seeing a team who doesn't score or win very often isn't very fun at all. And that's the point Chris Green's made as well. So that's a good point because you can just change the channel if it's crap, and the club are losing people with a flick of a button rather than walking out. It's easier to.
That to me, that last couple of games, at least we haven't got drive home.
Well, I know it's not Town's fault, but iFollow don't work. So, for a lot of people, they can't even get on to turn it off.
Right, okay, let's move on. So government say no fans for 6 months. So that's a good way to move on to that. So how do you guys feel about this? Kosi, you've always got strong opinions on fans in stadiums, and you're a good go-to person for this. How do you feel about these the new directives from our friend Boris, and how do you think the club, I know we've talked about communications, but how do you think the club handle this now, and what could the club do going forward? I know you've mentioned that slightly in passing and it's overlapping a bit.
Yeah, huge issues, isn't it? And they kind of entered 6 months as well. And if we're being honest, this latest kind of lockdown, I don't think that'll be a date, so I think we'll probably go back. So it's so worrying. I mean, if you think about League 1 and 2, couldn't afford to finish last season, no fans, no games, cancelled it, and they've started without any fans. And I know there were 1,000 in, but I've been reading kind of a few of the chairman's kind of comments this week and that as well. And I know he's a bit of a dick, to be fair, the Paul Scally at Gillingham, but he was saying even 1,000 fans, it didn't do any good because the costings you've got to put to kind of look after the people in there, it's like, it don't make it worth its while. I think there's massive issues and it's scary. I think we're going to be caught in it as well. I think a lot of people thinking the Premier League money and what have you and stuff, it might, in the end, us not spending a lot might be a bit of a saving grace, but it's a real problem. But what I can't understand is, so this is bizarre, and on Saturday I'm going to go to watch Scarborough v FC Man United. We can have 600 people in, which I think is unbelievable to say that obviously everything else has been sacked off. But it's really weird because I got a ticket for the game, and I spoke to one of the Scarborough directors today. What he was saying is that this is kind of classed as, it's almost like a game of local cricket. So it's not called elite sport. So you can, I think Brighouse will have a game, Liversidge and what have you. So it's really odd that like these local games will be on, although it all depends on the individual councils and things. But I just think we've got real problems. And the big question is, I know it's been done to death this week, but are the Premier League, because let's be honest, these are the only people I think that is going to be able to bail out. So I don't think the government are going to, even though other sports I've been reading have asked for government to help us, rugby union's another one. But I think there's real issue. I know Phil talked to 60 and maybe it's not going to be that many, but I'm worried. I'm very, very worried. And it's not just not being able to get back in a ground, but how many clubs are going to be left after this? Do the Premier League give a shit that if, we lose another 20 and stuff, another few, I know Macclesfield were different, Wiggins, only just hung on by the skin of the teeth, but there's people been saying this week that by Christmas they won't be able to trade anymore. That is worrying. I don't think we'll be in a stadium by Christmas. What's going to give? And we've always proud ourselves in this country, 92 teams and professional clubs, and obviously even the non-league. But the non-league have said, haven't they? They're not going to go with a crowd unless there's a crowd in, the top tier, the fifth tier. So they're pretty much saying it. But the trouble is, the two divisions in ours, League 1 and 2 have started. Are they going to finish? I don't know. I think this is the biggest threat to the game that we've ever had. And
I don't see how they can finish. When they finished last season early, because they couldn't have fans in, how can they finish this season? When they're doing a full season with no match day income, you can't do it, can they?
Neil, I'll tell you another thing that's a bit of a worry as well. There's been quite a few COVID tests and stuff last 2 weeks. That we didn't see that last year. Now that the tests we can't get tests at all. There's a massive shortage of tests. The Orient game got binned off last night. David Moyes, embarrassing, during the game he had to leave and what have you and stuff. I think we're going to get this a lot more. I think it's such a threat, and I'm worried because I love football. I love the strength of our country's football kind of network, shall we say, and I just don't see a future really for a lot of the clubs. Are they going to have to go part-time or players and stuff? There were a couple of people today on my Twitter saying that they've got to get real, some of these players, but they're not going to volunteer to take wage cuts. I know they did it in rugby league to keep the show going. Rugby league were a bit different, but I always kind of feel rugby players are a bit more kind of savvy and kind of get the people where I just think if you ask some of our guys to take a cut, I mean, we didn't take a cut, did we? When, as far as I'm aware, the first, kind of set of COVID, and I'll throw it out to you guys, but I'm worried.
Reported that when negotiations broke down with Chris Willock for Town, just as a perfect example, he'll have a contract in place for X amount of years on Y amount of money. Now, for players to start moving around now, they're going to have to lower their expectations on what they can be paid, because especially if they're moving clubs. So, if Willock, and I have no idea how much he's getting paid anywhere, so this is just round figures, but if he's on 10 grand at wherever he is, and he wants to move to Town, at the moment we might only be able to offer him 5, so he's actually better off just staying where he is, seeing what happens over the next 12, 18 months, and then looking to get a new deal, then. So you're interested in, Stephen Chicking was saying on the podcast about the transfers, and we moan at Town that we've not really bought anyone, but not a lot of other people have. I think, did he say something like the average net spend were minus 8 million? So people are actually selling, and you've only got your Premier League clubs really that are doing big business. But like you say, I think the only positive that might come out of this on the flip side is people might start to go watch more local football. So you said, you've got in Scarborough, Liverpool are playing on Saturday, so if anybody needs to watch any football, £6 in, you can't say no fairer than that to watch some live football. So they may benefit slightly. But then do you get used to that? Do you get used to watching Liverpool?
Dale, can I ask you something here, mate?
Go for it.
There's a lot of talk, the Bale, Bale's getting, paying Madrid's half of the wages or what have you, but do you think that the Premier League should bail out? Because I think Dyche had some controversial comments, didn't he? Will say, well, hang on a minute. That's kind of saying, your top, I don't know, Harvey Nichols Cafe should bail out Joe Blogg's Cafe down the street and stuff. What's your kind of view on that?
See, I'm torn about the whole thing. The football's kind of built on how the banking system was back in 2008 when it crashed. It's built on nothing, really. These clubs have been funding themselves on with money that they don't have. I'm kind of half for a reset in football as a whole, but I don't want to see clubs die, people lose their clubs. I don't think it's down to the Premier League to kind of sort out and kind of help mismanaged clubs. I'm torn. I don't really have an answer either way, because I think there's positives on both sides, as they call positives.
Phil, what about you, mate?
Going back to our administration, when we were struggling, we obviously, us as players, put the club into administration, and I lost loads of money out of it, money that was in my contracts that was owed to me. I chose to not take that money and take a smaller lump sum. Some players took it over X amount of years. I think players have got to take a bit of responsibility, to be honest. They're getting paid well. I just think it's difficult. Would you guys do it in your line of work now? If someone said to you, take a wage cut and whatever you've missed out on in these next couple of months, you get it over 35 years, like we were told. It's difficult. I just think at the top it's ridiculous. The money at the top is just embarrassing.
I think the thing at rugby, Phil, they basically was put, you don't take a cut, there'll be no game for you. So it's in your best interest. I think in our division, you'd be thinking, there'll still be something there, mate. So you wouldn't do it. You're right.
I don't think anybody thinks it's actually going to happen. I don't think anybody believes it's going to go bang. But the longer that people can't go in grounds, you are going to start seeing clubs go out of business. It's that simple.
I think my worry is the clubs lower down. The wage difference between Championship and League Two is massive, and you don't want to see clubs go folding. But
no,
it's such a massive difference in wages. I remember speaking to Dean years ago when we were, I think it was Lee Clark, and we were talking about Fraser Campbell's wages, and we were talking about the wage bill for Cardiff. Cardiff's wage bill was 40 million. This was bloody ages ago. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely frightening money for a club like Cardiff, who weren't a massive club before. They did something similar to us. It's just crazy. You can't. It's crazy. But what can they do? You know, it's down to the players really, and they've got to be asked first. I'm sure. So, I mean, look at Marcus Rashford; he's been fantastic, hasn't he? You know, the things he's done, and I'm sure a couple of other players have thrown money here and there to other people. But yeah, what do you do? What would you do? Take a cut.
The trouble is they tried about that salary cap, but it didn't go down well, did it? You know, I think they were mad because Rick Paddy kind of just said, "This is what's happening." Rather, we're going to have a kind of salary cap rather than kind of engaging the chairman, because you know a lot of them egos. So I think that's definitely something that's got to happen. But God, how would you do it? And freedom of contract, and Bodsman, and all that.
We were all cut. I remember we were all cut. I won't say how much it was, but it weren't much at all. Some of the players who were on a lot of money that were living off peanuts. And one of the young lads had a bonus after played 10 first team games. He got a big lump sum. And when the money were cut, he bowled in a brand new car with some subwoofers playing and all players like this. Like, what's going on here? I'm struggling to pay my mortgage, and he's got a brand new Golf with big subwoofers. It's funny times.
Less said about Eddie Yard's the better, mate, I think.
I definitely weren't him. Bloody hell. What a legend anyway.
It's funny, isn't it? Because like there's two sides to it. You probably find that your Premier League clubs, ironically, will maybe be better off because all of a sudden all those people who maybe went to matches, you know, it's such a small percentage of their match day income will now be maybe buying a Sky Sports subscription that they didn't used to have. Yeah, so, you know, on that side of it, further up, I think, you know, when we were in Premier League, it were a match day income were about 5 million. So, you know, probably sort of 10% of us as you know, as income that we had available to us, and back down in Championship, about 50%. So it's a massive difference for clubs, and I'd imagine even lower down the leagues, you know, especially League Two, your match day income is basically probably 80% of the income. You know, your sponsorship deals aren't going to be as much, and you know, folk buying pies and you know a couple of beers in ground, you know, that could pay players' wages for the week, and something as simple as them pies not being sold could actually have a massive detrimental effect.
Let's be fair, nobody's buying a scarf at the minute, are they?
Well, why would you? Because you generally buy football, you generally buy stuff to wear at a match, don't you? Like you said with shirt sales, Neil. You know, a lot of people buy a shirt because they wear it on a Saturday.
Because they go to the game, so your scarves and your hats and stuff, they're not selling any of them, are they? No, and then when you're in there, you might buy something else when you're in there because it's £3 or whatever.
This is where a club needs to be, you know, be thinking outside the box, though, because like for those shops, I know, you know, because they had a rant about it not being open, but footfall's going to be that little, it's probably not worth turning an electric on. So what a club need to do is think of ways to get some footfall through that shop, and socially distanced or COVID secure and all that sort of stuff. Think outside the box and get people, you know, down there or even maybe online. You know, competitions.
You do a pop-up shop, can you, Poz? Like a pop-up shop somewhere where there is footfall, because Huddersfield's not a busy place, so go to Home Firth or something, you know, Meltham.
Well, they could advertise it, couldn't they? They could advertise an event at shop and get it all barriered out and stuff. There's no reason why they couldn't barrier it all out around that car park near the shop.
Well, not even that, you know. If you know, one of the things that I think with crowds going back, just coming back to that point, is you talk about social distancing your stands. All right, yeah, that you can manage, but on the flip side of that, do you want 10,000 people, for example, all going to the same place on the same day? That's probably the barrier to opening stadiums in a larger scale than actually when they're in the stadium, because will they all social distance outside and all that sort of stuff. So instead of getting people to the product, take the product to the people. Hire out a mobile library as an example. Have a mobile club shop, and you know, drive through Home Firth and say, right, we'll be in Home Firth, and then we're going to Golka, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do that, and take the product to the people rather than the other way around. Because that's certainly what we drive.
Hey, Boris, I thought you were on overnight. He's back on. He's back on. The future is bright.
On the side of the bus. Yeah.
If there's 100 town fans in my village and there's a bus parked up where I can go up and buy something, I probably will, but I ain't getting in my car and driving all the way to Huddersfield to buy it. So they've got to start thinking of different stuff. You can have that one man.
Buy it online, Pozza. You must have internet where you are, mate.
I tell you what's quite a good idea.
People might not think of it. You know, you go to the local village to buy a sarnie on your lunch and it's there. You think, oh, go on, I'll have a look. You know what I mean?
I tell you what's been a good idea, Poz. There's a I think it's a Danish football club are doing like the American drive-in movie style things. So they're having football fans drive in, you know, and park up, you know, in a lot of spaces, and they're putting it on a massive screen. And you know, at that point, that's where you can sell items. You know, you can sell food. You can say, well, maybe you shouldn't sell alcohol if people are driving in, but you can sell certain things, you know, and you can have a pop-up shop that people can go to, etc. And it's things like this, ideas, and it's how clubs might need to survive in the new age.
Yeah.
I
follow FC Eindhoven, the second division Dutch club, and what they did this year, because they knew they were getting no footfall and no income, what they did was a group of fans actually created, they called it a bus line, and they had 6 or 7 episodes, and they were only 10-minute short videos where you bought a bus ticket for each stop, and it was like your history, your culture, your fan friendships, little snippets of bits and bats of the club of FC Eindhoven. Town have got 210,000 followers on Twitter. If it cost each person £5, that's £1 million you could potentially raise just by doing some informative social media bits and taking it to the people, like Pozza said. You don't have to move from your computer or your iPad or whatever. It's there for you.
That's a good point. Shall we? Are we all good on this, or do we need?
Yeah, I was just going to finish. Luton and Watford fans who were on telly today. They were driving up, but I don't think it were to watch the game in the cinema, mate. God, that's been intercepted.
An outdoor one, isn't it? But yeah. So there's something strange just come up about investment at Wrexham. There's Ryan Reynolds and another American actor Ryan Reynolds, the guy that does Deadpool, looking to buy Wrexham. That'll be a strange thing, but anyway.
Sod that, Matt. What about Friday? I think we're going to get something, mate. It might be a goal or a win, but we'll do something.
Well, speaking of the goal, rumours are Karlan Grant is back in the mix. Is this a point or is this to prove a point to West Brom from our side? Who knows? To me, the Karlan Grant situation doesn't look entirely like Karlan Grant's refused to play. It looks like maybe there's a bit of both here. Maybe the club are trying to protect him. And if that is the case, I'm quite happy to have Karlan Grant back in. If he spat the dummy out. If he spat the dummy out and he's saying no, I don't want to play, then I'm less inclined. But if it's a bit of both, then get this guy back in, get him scoring goals. What about you guys? Kozi's chant. We could steal that for Naby Sarr.
You've heard what I said earlier on. Over to you guys.
Yeah, Poz.
Yeah, I'm a bit with you, Matt. If he's turned around and said I ain't playing, I mean, it's a really tough one, and it goes back to players having more power than club, not just at town but anywhere. If he can turn around and go, I want to move, I ain't playing, and that move falls through, and all of a sudden he turns around and goes, oh, can I play again? To me, as a chairman or whoever makes that decision, the answer would be no, tough, go sit in reserves. But on the flip side, he's a decent player. So if he's going to play and he's going to score, it's only going to benefit Huddersfield Town. A, we'll get some goals. B, we might steady on here,
put himself in the shop window as well.
And he puts himself in shop window, and in January, somebody might then think, as a West Brom, oh, we will pay what they want. But
also, where would you play him?
I know in facts, you don't know, do you?
Where would you play him?
I like him as a wide Thierry Henry style, as you know. I think he's better off out there than as a striker up front. And if we can get Danny Ward on pitch, maybe him as a spearhead and Grant just at the side of him might work well. As I've said before, I don't think he's the greatest footballer, but he'll score goals. It's just, is his head in the right place? That's the main question, and we don't know that because we don't know what's going on.
I must admit, though, I think Sky Friday night, the old under lights and all that carry on. But I think this is his stage, man. I think be a good move. Get him in.
It is, yeah. Like I say, if he comes on and if he scores 2 goals and we win, is it all is forgiven? But we can't sit.
Remember last Friday night, Mr. Marsden.
Oh, I remember it well.
What I mean is that we can't sit here and sort of have a pop at, Pitchard, Diakabi and Benza saying that we won't ever play them again because of their attitude and stuff. And then say to Karlan Grant, yeah, you are all right to play if you've just been as bad. Yeah, he's a better player, so it gives you that. But, there's 2 sides to look at it and, depends how desperate we are for.
I think we're mega desperate.
On more than else.
I think we have to start winning games. We have to just forget the personality parts of it. We have to start winning games. Top and bottom.
We've got to get us players on pitch that were going to give us a chance to do that, and he's one of them, innit?
Honest, up too much. They were awful last week. They were really, really bad, and this is one for us to win here. Come on, let's get it.
Don't make me clip that out when they hammer us.
Before we came on, though, earlier on, Dale said earlier on, we know Huddersfield Town, we are if anybody's on a bad run or struggling for anything, we are the gift, aren't we? So let's not be for once. Let Forest be gift to us. Let's have the irony of ironies. They all can't stand Diakabi either, so we'll take a 1-0 and a Diakabi somewhere anywhere off his body. It won't be a foot, will it?
Then I'll drive to Huddersfield to get my ass out in front of town.
I'd have Pereira in me, guys. I'm going for it. Pereira would be in for me.
Agreed.
Likewise.
Up front, or?
Yeah.
He can play apparently.
Grant would start. Matty Daly would start. They're obvious ones for me. They're obvious ones. And it needs to happen because, let's be fair, in 3 games so far, it has not happened at all.
It's like what Dale was saying earlier, though. 56% possession at Brentford. You'd have took someone's right.
Didn't feel like that watching it, though, did it?
No. But teams know what they can do. Give us the ball. We're doing. I think we've just got to go for it on Friday. I think we can do it.
No,
we did that against West Brom. We took the game to them. We started on the front foot. We took the game to them, and we'd not seen that for how many weeks previous to that. Go for it again. You've got nothing to lose. You're expected to lose now because we're on such a poor run again. Just go for it. That's all we want to see.
Yeah, agreed.
No, I think it's the most. Well, sorry, Kosi, what were you going to say?
No, I think. Are you going to book the trend and say we're not going to win here?
I think it's the most winnable, isn't it, of the first of these 3 games?
It is now because we've lost to us.
Yeah, well, they're doing as bad as us. They've not scored in their first 3 games. Again, we've got something going up on the site tomorrow, but I spoke to a Forest fan for a preview of the game, and they play with minimal possession and try and win 1-0, and that's fine as long as you're winning. But when results dry up, it's not great. So I think it's the most winnable. I agree with you, lads. I'd start Grant. I think even Grant at 50% is better than our front 3. And like I say, it's on Sky, and not being funny, with like when Kosi made him his player of the season, if he does it on Sky live on TV, it does help. And I agree. I think we've got to go for it. I think it'd be interesting to see who plays, because I think Sarr technically is available to play. I think that might help us, especially with Schindler and Toffler.
Classic town. Get Grant in, scores twice, live on Sky. We win game, they sell it day after.
Exactly.
You make a good point though, Brady. Like best player of the season and maybe the next best player of the season. They've not kicked a ball for us, and we've lost all the games. We haven't got a big enough squad anyway. We need his best players in, like you said, Neil. We need them in, man.
Yeah, we do. Simple.
So what predictions we're going for? I'd like to see Romani Edmonds Green in for Schindler if Schindler's out. I think he's the future on the right side of that defence, so he, for me, would come in. I think we can get something, but I would imagine that both teams will be a little bit nervous, having not picked up a point. So I'm probably see a 1-1 draw going into this one. But what about you guys?
I'm going to go with something like a 1-1 mat as well, to be fair. I think, like you said, it'll be probably a little bit cagey, a little bit nervy. Both teams need to get a result under the belt. And, if each team settles for the point, it's 1 point that's on score sheet better than what they've got. So I think either 0-0 or 1-1.
Well, Pete Collins says we'll beat them. What about you, Dale?
I think it depends if Grant plays or not.
Every week so far, though.
Pete had us in playoffs, didn't he?
No, I think if Grant's playing, it's a draw, potentially a win, probably not. But if he's not playing, we're starting a loss already. We're not going to score. So if Grant plays, I'll take a draw, 1-1.
I'd also throw in an Eiting. I'd start Eiting as well. Just throw him in.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I have to again.
How you, Phil?
2-1 Town.
Oh, positive. I like that.
I just think, I think, like I say, starting with 2 tough games, sneak an early goal, hopefully, and I have no idea who'll score it, but sneak an early goal. I think we'll do all right. I do. I'm quietly confident.
Brady?
Get some kids in.
I think we'll probably see a better performance. I just, depending who's playing, if it's Grant or Ward or, I think we get a goal if they're playing. If not, I think it's probably 0-0, lads. We can't score at the moment. We'll shut them out. But again, it's a point, better than none.
Neil, I think you got the last one.
Well, we've lost.
Of course.
Bit looks a bit. Schindler and Toffler aren't going to be playing, are they? So the best form of defence is to get at them. Carlin Grant has got to play. If he's only got one leg and he's half-arsed, he's still got more chance of scoring than them other three. Get him in, get Matty Daly in, get this new lad in from Ajax. Kian Harrett is a striker. Get him in and all. Why not? It cannot get any worse than it's been already. So I'm going to go for a very positive 2-0 Forest win. No, I'm joking. I think we'll. On paper, it's all day a draw, innit? Yeah. But at home, Carl and Grant back in. I think Carl and Grant playing would give everybody else on pitch for us a lift, because they know we've actually got a chance of getting a goal and won't be one and done. So I'm going to go 1-1, 2-1 at time. So I've been able to vote it.
Do we get yours, Cos? Do we get your score?
Oh, we bet him last year. I remember Johnny Stankovic nearly jumping in South Stand. One of his rare good days at home, and we'll do it again. I think we're going to win 2-1, but I must admit, Neil, I were up in Toffolo and Schindler were back. So thanks for that brilliant team news, mate.
Just remember as well, lads, Forest have won European Cup at some point in their history, so we might not be able to compete with that. So if we lose 1-0, it's probably a good result.
Just get your volume up on your remote control. Hey, it's electric. Hey, what do Forest sing? I don't know what their song is.
All of Kintyre, don't they?
Yeah.
You just if he starts, you've just genuinely got a chance of a goal straight off. It's that simple, isn't it? We've started other 3 games without that chance, so we'll start with Carl and Grant. Half-assed Carl and Grant over anybody else.
He does things we never expected.
It's not quite as confident on the comments. A couple of 2-0 losses coming in, but we're going for it here, aren't we? So have you lads got anything else to add today, or do I stick on this music and Kosi sings us out?
Yeah, we're done. Put a fork in it.
I don't know what you're going to sing to this, Kosi, but I think that's
I'm not
done.
singing out, man. Yeah.
Right, thanks everybody for tuning
Carlos
in.
had a dream to score a goal for Town. We're Huddersfield Town. We're on our way back. Carlos had a dream.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So Town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So Town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.